May it be.
I will be honest, I kinda wanted to like this movie. Despite not knowing much about the Eternals and the comics, I liked the idea of delving deeper into the mythology of Marvel, or seeing more higher beings on screen, because one of my gripes with Infinity War and Endgame was that in spite of the cosmic level event that was going on, the universe seemed kinda small, which is understandable, they had enough things on their plate as is, but I saw this movie as an opportunity to delve deeper into things like exotic aliens, Watchers, and other such stuff that we've mostly only seen in post-credit scenes or just mentioned briefly. And I also liked some of the casting that they announced, like Angelina or Richard Totally Not My Man Crush Madden. What's peculiar is that all the stuff I got somewhat aroused for is technically all there, but it's all stifled in some way or another. The world building, for instance, isn't given its due. Instead of enhancing the universe, it introduces a number of plot holes and contrivances that are hard to ignore and somehow make you feel like you haven't learned all that much in the end. Because in this movie, we learn that Celestials are a thing, which are these higher godlike beings that require an obscene amount of life force, literally the equivalent of billions of life forms just to exist, and yet they, in their infinite wisdom, pun not intended, decided that getting involved in Thanos' war against the universe was not necessary, even though he ended up snapping away half of all fucking life. Life which, again, is necessary in order for these guys to survive. Which breeds another question. Are Celestials affected by the snap, same as everyone else? Cause that makes them seem even more retarded. And even if they aren't, Thanos could have decided to snap away all life in the universe, period, which would have meant the death of the Celestials in the long run, since no new life means no new Celestials. GG. The writers effectively created a situation where the demiurge figures of the Marvel Universe are damnably callous at best, fucking retarded at worst. Well fucking played. But as if that weren't enough, the actual plot of the film, which I will attempt not to spoil, makes them seem even more incompetent because in less than 1 hour of movie, we meet the god of the universe, are underwhelmed by his lack of involvement and poor governing of existence, and we learn that he basically screwed the pooch faster than Old Testament God ever did. All of this makes me immediately uninvested in the plot because we're presented with a dilemma of obeying or disobeying these guys, and what should be a difficult moral choice for our heroes ends up being a no-brainer from the audience's perspective because these guys are clearly incompetent and don't know any better. Oh, we didn't help out against Thanos because we didn't want to stifle the growth of humans or anyone else. We thought it better if Thanos just stifled you all in half. Lesser evil, really. Couldn't risk you guys not turning out well. Better let the genocidal murderer liquidate the lot of you. Marvel have never been good at tracking the power level of their characters. Most films aren't good at that sort of thing. But this movie is especially bewildering on that front because Icarus, a guy who looks suspiciously like Robb Stark and probably failed English class, starts out looking not much more powerful than his Eternal brothers and sisters, except 2/3 into the movie we're told he could probably take them all on in a straight fight. What? And then, near the end of the movie, he's restrained by just one guy for a long while. Get the fuck out of here. This shit is so inconsistent. Even Icarus is bothered by it. Look, he flew into the sun. As I said, I was somewhat excited by the casting of these guys, but this too is hampered by the rest of the cast. Angie is supposed to have this sensitive, touching relationship with this Asian dude, and I don't think he's a bad actor, but they have zero chemistry together. Most of the time, Jolie looks almost embarrassed to be there, and you can kind of feel that through the screen. And honestly, I'd be a bit cranky too, because they pretty much wasted her character. Without spoiling too much, she has this weird disease, basically the Eternals' equivalent of schizophrenia, and she kind of gets marginalized for most of the film as a result. And that plot line goes nowhere. It just stops dead near the end. What a waste. I will say that I quite enjoyed her powers though. She's the only one that has an interesting ability. Everyone else's is something we've seen before. And I understand that they're constrained by comics that were written back when I had yet to grow a single chest hair, but it just spells been there, done that to me. And I found myself latching onto her character because she looked cool, her powers are cool, the choreography succeeds in making her look deadly, mostly. But she's just a wasted character. And as a collective plus, all the VFX are absolutely solid. Some of these special effects shots deserve praise, because they really do manage to communicate scale and heft like never before. All of the lasers and floating gizmos not only look real, they feel real, which makes me wonder how much soul-crushing effort went into polishing this stuff. This is the kind of movie that I don't want to watch again, but I might take another peek at some of the cooler looking sequences from time to time. I don't really have any complaints about Robb Stark. He's solid, he gets a beefy role, he plays his part well. Some of it's a bit on the nose though. Speaking of nose, Richard Madden has a pretty big one. I just felt like pointing that out, because I never noticed it before. Yeah. Also, this is completely besides anything relevant to anyone whatsoever, but am I the only one who thinks Robb Stark saying "You are beautiful, Cersei" is a bit unsettling? Anyone? No? Okay. I also like this guy. I think that was some good casting. Barry Keoghan fits well in the role of the defiant outsider who thinks he knows better. Everyone else is just kinda there. Nanjiani doesn't really shine as a comedian here. He has a couple funny lines, but there's only so much you can do with a shitty script. I don't know, either they didn't allow him to improvise much, or he's just not that good. And for a film called Eternals, I kinda wanted to spend more time with the Eternals. It's so weird, they're in it for most of the runtime, but most of them feel underdeveloped by the end. And that's because of bullshit like this.
Always bring backups.
This is where the Marvel house style really starts to show its limitations, because too much of this movie is devoted to a brand of humor that just doesn't fit it. And it's so fucking weird, because this isn't even your usual MCU humor. It's below that standard. Just some weird, out-of-place jokes that feel like they were tacked on last second. I don't use the word cringe a lot, but I cringed at a couple of these. That's not to say that all of it is bad, of course, but on the whole, the movie could have done without this kind of tonal balancing. People say this was supposed to be the next Avengers movie, but if you watch the film, it clearly doesn't want to be that. Despite its scale, it wants to be a more intimate, introspective film, and I think it should have been allowed to be that. Instead, it was stuffed with awkward fucking spit beer jokes and a fat Indian vlogger. I think the movie shines when it slows down and just focuses on the main character pondering existence and their place in the, oh, you know what would make this shine? Gay Arab. That's what we've been missing. I don't care about anyone's race or sexuality, but this thing's pushing the agenda so hard it's got woke emanating from all its pores, like a bull wearing Miss Dior. But I gotta talk about the villains a bit, because this shit made me laugh retroactively after finishing the movie. Eternals introduces a new character more than halfway through the movie. I mean, it's a pre-existing villain that kinda undergoes a metamorphosis, so he basically becomes a different character altogether. They introduce a new character at the halfway point, then forget about him all the way up until the finale. My guy shows up in the climax and gets himself killed. He dies. I spoiled it, I don't even care. What was the point of this character? He literally shows up near the end, late to the party, and I was like, oh, I forgot he was in the movie. It's so undercooked. And that's kind of the theme of the whole film. It's half-baked. They had a really good framework, a couple solid ideas, and they done fucked it up. Because they knew the fans wanted this to be the next Avengers, and they wanted this to be the next Avengers. And it had to conform to the style guide and have a bunch of dumb jokes, and they wanted to get the message across. I'm so tired. But despite all the shit I'm giving it, I was still this close to recommending it to you because I like thought-provoking, introspective character studies, and this film could have been that. It has that vibe. Like when it focuses on the interplay between the various Eternals, I think it really shines. And if it had more of those scenes, I think this could have been, hey, you know what else we should do? Have some representation for all the deaf people out there. Oh, will you shut up? I'm sorry, but why are you a mute if you're a higher being? And why is this other guy fat? It's so funny to me that they talk about the plow and how disappointed they are in the primitive stage of development humanity finds itself in. Yet we are to believe that 1,000,000 years worth of evolution later, speech impairment and obesity are still a thing. They go from talking about advancing humanity beyond their imperfect state in one scene to showing an Eternal using sign language in the next. Someone punch me before my brain melts. And one more thing, why are they using regular ass sign language patented by humans that has yet to be invented yet. It's a Marvel film, Warlock, calm down. It's a Marvel my brain's still functioning, but yeah, gotta have some representation for the mutes. I'm sure they can't enjoy a big, dumb superhero movie unless one of the heroes uses their sign language. That makes total sense. Hope Eternals 2 has one with Down syndrome. I mean, why stop here? I gotta say, Marvel has not gotten better at the whole ruthless calculus thing. This was already a fly back in my Infinity War soup, and the damn thing somehow found a way to breed. Because the movie goes for the same kind of bullshit Thanos math that Infinity War did, which was plenty dumb there. And it hasn't improved much. First of all, it presents these cosmic level stakes, sacrifice millions to save billions and all that jazz that you literally only care about if you're a lawful good math major. So that's already kinda shaky. But on top of that, the movie also makes a big empathy leap because it assumes that we, the audience, are, by default, invested enough in humanity to want to see it survive. Which we aren't. If this sounds like it doesn't make sense, let me rephrase. As humans, you are by default invested in your own survival. As moviegoers, you are not. As moviegoers, we're not interested in numbers and millions versus billions dying or the survival of the human race or the gopher race or any race. Those are abstract things. As moviegoers, we think with our emotions, as paradoxical as that sounds. Therefore, we need to spend enough time with whatever it is that we're supposed to care about in order to care about it. And Eternals sadly doesn't give us that. It keeps us distanced from humanity, and most of the bonding moments that are supposed to make us feel empathetic are reduced to quick montages. The movie assumes that it doesn't need to work much to make humans sympathetic because the people watching it are humans, which is ass backwards. If value of humanity is the message that it wanted to present, then humanity should have been the main focus of the movie. Let me say it again. If human value is the main message you're peddling, then this movie should be about humans, not Eternals. Otherwise, I don't buy it. If I'm a jaded, nihilistic cunt longing for death, then I need to see something that renews my faith in humanity. And this movie shows very little humanity. And whenever it tries, it trips over a bad joke and starts crying. Whatever, I might have had a couple more points, but I can't be bothered to make them. This is the Stargate universe of the MCU. It was a good idea, executed poorly, and I almost liked it. God damn it, Marvel. Oh, by the way, it starts with a text crawl, because of course it does.